Ah, fighting games, the type of games that force you to do inputs that look like this.
Okay. Oh my god.
Now, I can confidently say that I cannot do anything of the sort, but I did have my moments with games like King of Fighters and Fatal Fury. Basically, I was an SNK guy, and when I say SNK, I don't mean this, but I'll talk about that guy another day. Anyway, despite me not being the best at these games, the vibes that they gave off made me feel so cool. Chaining combos and combining them into your special moves just filled me with an adrenaline that made me feel as if I was doing these moves myself. But after some time, I wanted something a bit more. I played King of Fighters 98 and 99 to death and wanted more fighting games that were also too cool for school. Then I got introduced to Guilty Gear. This franchise, to this day, is sort of leading the pack when it comes to stylish fighting games. Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 do look nice, but the graphic fidelity of Guilty Gear is just my style. Arc System Works just knows what a player is looking for when it comes to a certain style and aesthetic for captivating the casual gamer to play these heavy input games. Guilty Gear, for one, was gritty, and sure, it was filled with magic, but it was also very post-apocalyptic. The character designs are sleek and stylish, and the soundtrack, oh my god, the soundtrack for these games are just spectacular. And the one singular man that is responsible for the soundtrack and almost everything else that is Guilty Gear is Daisuke Ishiwatari. Daisuke Ishiwatari, in short, is like a one-man army. He is a video game developer, illustrator, musician, composer, and voice actor. For Guilty Gear, he designed all the characters, composed all the songs, and wrote the entire storyline. And yes, the Guilty Gear story is a bit much, but that is sort of the case with almost all fighting games. And sure, some stories are easier to follow than others, but it doesn't help when there isn't really a dedicated story mode for fighting games at that time. Sure, there are snippets of the plot in arcade mode, but other than that, you weren't given much. I mean, look at Blaze Blue, another 2D fighting game by Arc System Works, and it's drenched in an entire lore that can be very hard to follow. And since this is the technical spiritual successor to Guilty Gear, you can find a lot of tracks composed by Ishiwatari. Currently, he is no longer the main character designer, nor does he do the voice acting for Soul, but he'll always be there for the music, and he does some artwork here and there for the games. However, since this is an art channel, I'll mainly be looking at his character designs and his illustrative work while I talk about things that I found very cool about his art style. Ishiwatari at one point has mentioned that Kazushi Higiwari's manga Bastard, as well as Street Fighter 2 being the major influences to the Guilty Gear world, which honestly checks out because fighting and magic. But let's start simple and look at the first Guilty Gear. Now, just a disclaimer, I couldn't find the cleanest scans of the character art for this game, but let's try to dissect some of these designs. Let's start with the two poster boys of these games, Soul and Kai. What is amazing about these two color-coded characters is that on the first look, you could tell that these two are the main characters. Something about the colors red and blue just signals itself to the viewers that these guys are the main guys, and you've seen this combination of colors all throughout your life. Sonic and Knuckles, Dante and Virgil, Mega Man and Proto Man, the Red Ranger and the Blue Ranger, the Slifer and Obelisk uniforms in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, it's the go-to colors to show off two protagonists or two rivals and to let people know that the story is going to be about these guys. That and well, they are also sort of on the box art of this game. But aside from that, even if we don't look at Soul and Kai, all the other characters of this game are pretty damn unique and have very distinct designs. We have people like Mei, who is a pirate that wields an anchor as a weapon, which is very fitting, and then we have people like Potemkin, who is the obvious tank character just by virtue of his massive size, and people like Melia Rage, which uses her hair as a weapon. I won't go over all the characters because I'd be here all day otherwise, but I've mentioned a method in a previous video in which when dealing with a large cast of characters, you can make them into silhouettes, and if you can more or less tell which characters are which, then you know you have a really good character design. Like, you could tell that this is Melia with how Ishiwatari uses her hair as a means to make her silhouette a lot more interesting and how it curves around her body, and this is a reoccurring thing with each rendition of her character art in each subsequent game. You want to make emphasis on this because while you can argue that Soul has hair as long as hers, her hair is intertwined with her character, story, and fighting style in the plot. Which leads to my next point about the characters in this game. These are all people all around the world. More specifically, our world. I mentioned earlier that the setting of Guilty Gear is a bit post-apocalyptic, but these are still people of different ethnicities from different cultures. For example, Jam is a character of Chinese descent, therefore her design reflects that, particularly the red chi pao she's wearing. If for whatever reason she wasn't Chinese and wore this, then there would have to be a very good in-game lore reason for this, and besides, that's what Chip is for. Chip is a character that is canonically born in America, but due to his obsession with Japanese culture after being trained to be a literal ninja, his outfit sort of reflects that a bit. While it's not the most Japanese fit out there, but the fishnets and this ninja glove reflects how he's trained to be, well, exactly a ninja. Axelo is a character from England, and although his initial Guilty Gear design doesn't make that too obvious, I feel that him literally adorning the flag of the United Kingdom for his design in the later games is sort of a bit on the nose. Just like how Bandit Keith wears the American flag as a bandana to let us know that without a doubt, he's an American. Huh, that's 2 Yu-Gi-Oh references in one video. One day. Milia is Russian, but it's not really obvious until her extra design, where you see her wearing a Cossack hat which screams Russian. Although here's a bit of a disclaimer. I do know that Ishiwatari is the main character designer for all the characters in Guilty Gear. I'm not entirely sure as to which designs he may not have worked on. It's pretty clear that he didn't draw the designs for Exert and Strive, but I do think he still has a say in how the designs are finalized. And honestly, it makes sense. At the beginning, it was literally just him and a very small team that created Guilty Gear, with him doing what seems to be a lot of the game's development, so as the games got more popular and the team got bigger, he really shouldn't be doing literally everything anymore. With that being the case, I want to bring up Guilty Gear 2, the one game that isn't a traditional 2D fighting game. This game has a very limited cast of characters compared to the games that came before it. However, you also see a very drastic change for Soul and Kai's design. And since I am not sure, I'll ask you guys watching. Did Ishiwatari do the character designs for this game? And if so, did he do the character art? Because it's not his usual style of rendering, which I will go over when talking about his illustrative work. I will say, while these are very drastic changes from the original designs, it stayed true to the vibe and aesthetic of Guilty Gear. And that vibe and aesthetic in particular is belts. For all the people that made fun of Tetsuya Nomura for his designs that are littered with belts, buckles, and zippers, I hope you gave Ishiwatari the same treatment. I do personally prefer the designs in Guilty Gear, but come on, let's be fair. Soul, Kai, Mei, Chip, Zato, why does he have a belt around his waist, neck, and his blindfold? And I'm being nice considering I'm not even showing the Exert and Strive designs because it's only more exasperated in those games. And again, mind you, I don't really mind. It's honestly just a funny design aspect that I've been seeing in some character designs and I find it hilarious. Seeing his illustrated work just makes my jaw drop. Again, this guy also did the music, wrote the story, and did some voice acting. You would think that spreading his skill set on many things would in turn make him have some shortcomings in another skill set, but no. He's just simply good at illustrating very good pieces. Something that I noticed immediately is that he is mostly traditional and mainly colors with Copic markers. You can see the slight texture of the paper that gives it away immediately. I also noticed that he doesn't really ink a lot of his work. It honestly looks like he just makes some final pencil lines and proceeds to color. You can really tell that he does go in a bit rough when you look at the background details in this piece, or if you look at this piece with Angie and Baiken. There are also some pieces in which he uses acrylic paint to color his illustrations, like in this piece, and it seems like he tends to go towards more of a semi-realistic art style in these pieces. In fact, it's pretty interesting that his early art style was pretty grounded. I mean, it's still within the realms of an anime art style, but other than the crazy muscle anatomy he gives his male characters, everyone is drawn more or less with a certain level of realism. And in terms of composition, he really likes to make illustrations that are symmetrical or that are more or less mirroring itself from left to right. Most of them aren't perfectly symmetrical, but if you look at pieces like this, or this, you can see a slight running theme. But let's go back to anatomy for a quick second and look at the male characters. If you look at this illustration of Chip, you can see that Ishiwatari is very knowledgeable about muscle anatomy. You are able to see anterior, lateral, and posterior deltoids, the two tricep brachii, long and short head of the biceps, as well as the muscles on the forearm. If you really want to sell these buff, muscular characters, anatomy is very important. Hell, even crazy things like Baki need some level of anatomical knowledge. Although there are some moments in which he does go a bit crazy. Jesus, look at that neck. I do find it to be a breath of fresh air in the case in which none of the women he draws seem to be too overly sexualized or have very exaggerated proportions to make them, well, overly sexualized. I mean, sure, Baiken will show some cleavage here and there, but that is nothing compared to the Exert and Strive designs, and since Ishiwatari didn't draw those, I'm not going to be talking about them. They're probably going to be a different video sometime in the far future. And speaking of Exert, it is around this point where you see a very dramatic change in his art style. It is a lot more refined in terms of line work and straight up coloring. You can still make out that he uses a traditional medium to color some of his work, but he also dives into the digital medium by looking at pieces like this. I particularly love this illustration and it is so good as a desktop background. His usage of color in general seems to be a lot more sophisticated as well. Not that it wasn't before, but walk with me on this one. In this illustration with Alpha and Ramathal, you can see that instead of using a simple darker hue for the shadows, he uses a purplish color, which really helps in unifying the overall color palette of this piece. If he just used a simple darker hue, it would have muddied up the entire color palette. And besides, shadows in nature are naturally a cool hue, so honestly, this just makes sense. To sum this all up, Daisuke Ishiwatari is an absolute madman. I don't know a lot of people that could be a one-man army like he can. Guilty Gear was a fighting game series that I felt was sort of niche in the early 2000s, since it sort of got overlooked by fighting games like Street Fighter, Tekken, Soul Calibur, and even things like King of Fighters. There was even a span of time in which the Guilty Gear series seemed to not be having any more games. And sure, there was BlazBlue, which is the spiritual successor. It didn't really have the exact rock apocalyptic vibes as its predecessor, although I will admit this illustration of Ragna and Jin that he did is pretty damn cool. And for those that want to know about the Guilty Gear story, honestly, just look up a YouTube video because it is a very crazy and sort of hard to follow story, especially if you weren't there to follow it since the beginning. Strive is the latest installment in the series if you are interested and want to pick it up. I couldn't find any sort of social media from Ishiwatari, but if you want to be up to date with Guilty Gear news, there is their Twitter page. But if you want to look at the artwork, there are some Guilty Gear art books out there, but you may have to cough up some money to get them. Although there is an excerpt art book that did come out recently that I might try to pick up whenever I have the chance. Recently, Guilty Gear just announced an anime called Dual Rulers, and I just know that it's going to have Ishiwatari all over it, because if he's not involved, then it's not Guilty Gear. What is up, YouTube? Thank you so much for watching this video. By the time I'm recording this mini outro, it is going to be early in the morning, so if I sound tired, that is why. Daisuke Ishiwatari is an artist that I've been meaning to look at much earlier, but other things came in and I didn't have time to do it. However, with the announcement for Guilty Gear Strive Dual Rulers, it sort of compelled me to actually making this video and getting it done before it came out. By the time I'm doing this outro, actually, it should be coming out next month or in a week or two. So I'm looking forward to that, honestly. I love Guilty Gear, love the series, love the characters. The story is crazy, but as someone that has kept up with it, I do thoroughly enjoy it. As for the next artist analysis, I really don't know. I might do a poll. I might do a poll either the next artist analysis or the next artist showcase, just to see what you guys want. And yeah, again, I thank you so much for the people that get to this point of the video and watch through. Follow me on my socials. I have an Instagram, I have a Twitter, I have a Twitch, I now have a TikTok. I know, it is crazy. What has the world come to? I don't know. And if you want to support me on Patreon. I do have a few new members, free members, that I'm really appreciative of you guys. If you like the video, please like the video. I hear that does something with the YouTube algorithm. Comment. I love reading comments. I love reading good comments. I like reading bad comments. And subscribe. Subscribing is very cool. I love it when the number goes up. So again, if you like what you see, like content, like these videos, want to see more art videos, which I'm going to do some art videos between this and artist analysis and the next one, please consider subscribing and following my content. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.